right, it's 5 o'clock. Can I have a motion to open the meeting?
Motion to open the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There's nobody from the public that wishes to speak, Linz?
Doesn't look like we have anyone waiting to get in.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'm going to continue that to our next meeting, and that would be the minutes for January, February, and for this meeting then. Okay.
Yep.
Lynn?
Yep.
Okay. Then for public hearings, we have Mike Michon in regards to the reservation of 2 all-alcoholic licenses for the Ferry Street development. So Mike, if you'd like to tell us why you think that we should reserve 2 of our 3 licenses for you, would like to hear.
Yeah, Kelly, if I can real quick too, just address the board. I did speak to City Legal Counsel Attorney Tanner, as well as the Executive Director at the ABCC, Ralph Sacramone, who both suggested that we are able to and should be able to reserve 2 licenses for Mr. Michon for his developments, but I will let him also speak on what he needs them for.
Okay.
Thank you. So this project started obviously a little while ago. I started to pursue Ferry Street right around 2017, 2018. And because of the size of the project, we knew that we needed the city's help with multiple permitting and licenses for the project. And the city did say that they were trying to secure additional liquor licenses through the state for the Mill District. And obviously this is specifically part of the Mill District. Now this will benefit, not only myself as a developer to have tenants come to this part of the city, but it'll also obviously benefit the city as well to allow for this section of Easthampton to be, redeveloped.
Okay. Well, from what you've presented to us so far in the form of a letter, so as you know, we were only awarded 3 licenses for the Mill District for all alcohol. 3 all alcohol and 2 wine and malt. So that's for the whole Mill District. So by giving you 2 of them, reserving 2 of them, that would mean any other businesses other than one other business coming in would have to request a license from the legislature. We couldn't give it to it if it's reserved for you. So that would limit other businesses starting up between now and when you're asking for them, which from your last letter, you were asking for a reservation up to 5 years. Am I correct in this?
Correct. I'd rather overestimate than underestimate in the time frame.
Okay. Well, one of the major roadblocks I see to that is that the statute reads that these licenses have to be awarded prior to March 17, 2023. They have to have been awarded and being in use, that there is a 3-year limit on them. So that's a problem if you're asking for 5 years.
So Kelly, Ralph at the ABCC did say that we could award them to Mr. Michon and have them reserved. And Jeff Bagg and I had talked about typing up a formal letter with some clauses in it stating that it needs to be the same thing we've done for Mr. Rogers as well, is that you implement a time frame and hold Mr. Michon to that. So if the license isn't executed by June 2024, then he would lose the right to continue reserving that and anyone else could apply. So just to put that on the table, that we would draft up a letter of agreement for Mr. Michon and the board to all sign off on, to make sure that, you know, we're all tied into those licenses responsibly. And that was okay with the ABCC, as long as he had that application completed by the date that we put into the agreement.
Well, that's fine with the ABCC, but this is the legislation that says, this is part of the statute. It's the last paragraph, it's paragraph F in the statute, that it has to be awarded. And the ABCC said that they would not grant anything if there wasn't anything for them to go and inspect and look at, correct?
Correct. So we can't submit any incomplete applications. I'm wondering if we could do something, let me see. I'm just looking at that.
Sure.
I'm wondering if we could do something like an extension after that date.
That was my understanding, Lindsay, is that once it was awarded, that there would be able to be an extension.
Yeah, I mean, if we did something like a reservation of 2 licenses with clauses stating that they would need to be used by a certain date, we could even put in there the legislation requires by X date, but upon review an extension or something along those lines. I know Jeff has a little more experience with drafting these types of letters than I do, so I would certainly seek some guidance from him or someone else to help me with that. But
Well, I think that we have to pursue, I don't know if it's up to us to even issue an extension. I think it has to be brought up to our representative that has to bring it to the legislation, because it specifically says, shall be issued not later than 3 years after the effective date of this act.
I mean, one way to interpret that would be that, you know, it does say the word issued, but one way to interpret that would be that by your granting the reservation, you know, you've achieved kind of the intent of that letter F, that you, within 3 years, you've actually reserved those with your own criteria attached to it. And so it would add the additional 2 years beyond that to the condition of the reservation. I don't know,
Yeah,
like,
I don't think it's ours or yours, or I think that we need some guidance from an authority that, you know, issued this, not our interpretation of it. I think there needs to be some legal interpretation of this, that it doesn't get, I mean, I want us to be able to, if we do grant this, that another business that may lose the chance to get a license, this would be what they were going to come, this would be what they're going to hang their hat on, this language here. So I think that we need to have somebody tell us that that is okay in a legal sense.
When is the occupancy going to be starting on this project?
Mike, that's a question for you.
yeah.
I couldn't hear the question.
When is the occupancy starting on this project? When do you expect tenants to start moving in? When do you start?
Well, it's a multi-phased, multi-year project.
Mhm.
The first building is already completed and occupied. And now we're working on this, potentially, well, we were going to start the second building this fall. And because of everything that's happened here, we've decided to hold off till spring to start that. So, you know, the game plan is a 1.5 year build on the next building. And then the following building will be one of the buildings that'll need a license. It'll have a restaurant, rooftop restaurant on it. So it's, you know, it could be 2 to 3 years away. But, you know, who would have ever thought about, you know, wildfires, lightning, floods, COVID-19, pandemics, you know, that's the problem.
Great. But Mike, what about, why are you not going through once you have a tenant or you have a tenant that you've signed a contract with, why aren't you going to apply then?
Because we can't market it without it being turnkey. For us to bring a restaurateur that's a larger organization, the location and the license needs to be turnkey.
Well, I understand that, but what about, there's other mill buildings here that are probably need the same assurance to give to a tenant coming into them. So how do we fairly say to them, sorry, you have to go apply for, to the legislation for a license?
All I can tell you, ma'am, this was basically promised for this project back years ago, to make this project shovel ready, to keep this project going. If we don't get a liquor license for this project, it'll be a detriment to my organization and to the city.
Kelly, can I make a suggestion? Maybe something the board could do is we do this letter of agreement with some clauses in it, and reserve these 2 licenses, but also during that time frame, I know you had a concern about the legislative language, but I could resend that to Mark Tanner and have him review that as well, just to make sure. And then we can come back in October and say, yes, Mark said this was okay, and kind of finalize it, if that was something you were comfortable with.
I'm
Well,
actually
I think we have to do that before we can, definitely make a decision. We have to find out if we can even do that. So yes, go ahead, Stan.
Yeah, I have concerns about what Mr. Michon was saying just a few minutes ago. Who promised you? Who made you these promises? Because nobody in the city is authorized to make that kind of a promise to you. This is an independent board, and we would make that decision.
Let me rephrase it. That it may not have been promised, but it was definitely part of the communication between myself and the city.
Okay.
But who is the city when you say the city?
Jeff?
Okay.
Planners?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was gonna say something about the word promise was not the correct term. I think that, myself and the mayor were involved in discussions with Mr. Michon as he, really leapt into kind of the redevelopment. So
But we all know that the mayor cannot make any kind of comment or decisions concerning the licensing board, that it is
Right.
a conflict of interest for her.
Yep.
So she should not have been in on any kind of conversations with Mr. Michon in regards to liquor licenses,
Right.
correct?
Yeah. So, we've had a lot of different discussions. So going back, I wasn't going to disagree with the word promise too. So I'm fine with disagreeing with that term. I don't think that was the nature of the discussions. The nature of the discussions were definitely more along the lines that the city will do anything it can to support this project. And I think what I'm here to help just give some support to the licensing board with this request is to really help articulate sort of the size and scale of this project. It really is unique unto itself, and it's unique to Easthampton. So, when I approach anything like this, I really, I work with the planning board, daily a lot, and I really try to help them by putting myself in their shoes to understand, they are the decision makers who are working on behalf of the whole city. The thing that is unique about this project is it's the transformational nature of it, the size and scale of the investment, and then the understanding of the needs of the developer to make the whole project happen is where Mr. Michon got the commitment from, the city in general. And it goes, beyond just the mayor's office and my office. I mean, there's people who are really supportive of this project because without it, we will likely never see this site developed the way that we all want it to be. And I think Mr. Michon is in the process now of proving that, the development will happen. There are things that are necessary for him, I believe, to make it happen. And the first one that we are successfully just about to finish is the Mass Works grant. That was a key when we applied for that grant. It's public dollars, but we would have not gotten those public dollars without the investment, without the project. So they go hand in hand. Where we're trying to figure this out is what can the licensing board do to also help. And that's where I think Lindsay took the lead on kind of talking to the city attorney and the folks at ABCC about this idea of the reservation, which is what the developer needs. And we understood that it can happen through your authority as the licensing commission, to ensure that this development will have what it needs to keep going. And I know that this is one more step than anyone wants to hear about, but there are other communities that do this kind of thing in advance and along with and to support big projects. So, the one example that I am aware of is for the city of Worcester in their creation of the Polar Park, which is the baseball, it's the Red Sox minor league. Those people need to have a liquor license or multiple to make a giant baseball stadium come to fruition. And they understand that a project like that can take years to develop, but it's too much of a risk for the developer to go all the way and then wait till everything's done to find out that there's not a license available. So that's the idea behind the reservation. And I guess to reiterate, putting myself in your shoes, what I think is unique, and I think you want to make sure that you feel like you're not being arbitrary, or you want to be a little bit protected from someone else coming in. So like your example of the other mill, another mill building owner or something, they're never, without a full redevelopment, without $40 million and $5 million of public investment, you're not going to have something that would achieve the scale or size of this project. The only other one I can think of that I see coming down the pike someday in the future is the reuse of the elementary schools. So we have the 3 elementary school buildings downtown. That's really the only substantial project that I could envision coming down that would be remotely similar, where the developer just needs all these tools together in advance of actually pulling the trigger on things financially. So I that's where we believe that the license is important. But just to come full circle, there was no promises, but there was commitments made to do whatever we can. And, I personally came to the commission 2 years ago. It was probably to help get the letter of support, which, referenced this project. And that, yep, the letter of support. Yes. Yeah, I think you were on the commission at that point, I believe. But the letter of support went to the ABCC in support of getting these additional licenses. So we always knew that this project was part of that request to get the 8 additional. It's definitely why we did that.
Anthony, do you have something you want to ask here?
No, I think, one thing I think you were concerned about what the legislature had intended, and if what we're proposing doing would go against what they proposed. I didn't know if it would be possible to reach out to Representative Carey and ask what he thinks about it, or if it needs to go back to the legislature, or if this is something that, we have the authority to do.
Well, I think one of the things, Lindsay, when you speak to the legislation, one of our problems that our hands are really tied with, that the over quota licenses that we were issued on the first go around were tied into the actual addresses that they were issued for. And when these businesses went out, these licenses were stayed with the addresses, which has limited us to the amount of liquor licenses we have in the town to give out. And if we could get the legislation to allow us to amend those, we would not even be sitting here discussing this right now, because that would bring us back to having what do we have, 6 of them sitting out there that can't be used right now, I believe, Lindsay? That they're full licenses.
I think there's about 3 or 4 that I know of. I'm just concerned about tying those into this conversation too, because I think that is something we're still working on the back end. I mean, we're going through the Senate and you know that process. I mean, it took us a year to get these licenses. So
Right.
I think that's something that I could work on diligently while we move forward with other issues, like Mr. Michon's reservation of licenses. I just think that, you know, after conversations with the attorney and the ABCC, that it is in the best interest of the city to do a reservation. Even if we just do it right now, we write it out so it's to the expiration of 3 years from now, that meets the legislative language. And then I can start working on with Dan Carey, what does this mean? Do we have to renew this? Do we have to request from the legislation again? Because the process takes so long that I think that the board should consider doing this reservation to that expiration date, and then let me really dig in there to find out with Dan Carey and our other representative, do we have to have that expiration term in 3 years? If not, we bring it back to the table, we revise and amend that. We put a clause into the agreement saying that the board is able to amend the dates upon review. I mean, I just think these processes take so long that we should start.
Well, and that's it. It takes so long. And what happens to the business that comes in 2 months from now looking to open up a restaurant? You know, we do have one. One of the things that I had asked Jeff, or asked Lindsay to ask Jeff earlier, because we do know that there's somebody interested in buying Peter Pan. Peter Pan would be an all alcohol license. That would then give us, if that's considered Mill District, which I don't know, that would give us no licenses then to give to any other business coming into the Mill District. So that's a concern to me there, that we've now eliminated for anybody that's looking to start a business within the next 3 years. They would have to go for a legislative license, and that would take 1.5 years for them. And you know they're not going to wait that long. So that's, you know, that's my main concern right now, is not being available to help another business coming in.
Yeah. I think, can I ask, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm curious about Peter Pan. So there is an existing license for that establishment, correct?
No, that was sold.
Okay.
That license was sold, and somebody else has purchased it, and somebody else is building a bar, a freestanding bar. So Peter Pan, being a bar already, though, without a license.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I want to give a little bit more assurance that the way the recent expanded set of license was worded is it really hinges on the Mill District, you know, as it's defined in the zoning ordinance. We have a zoning map. So, I mean, I can tell you that it's not in the Mill District. So there's that section of Pleasant Street with all the side streets. And Lindsay, if it's worth the discussion, we can go through that. But we looked at it, and the Peter Pan location is on Pleasant Street. It's on the corner of, I don't remember the name of it. What is it?
Hill Avenue.
Hill?
Hill.
Yeah, Hill, Hill.
Hill, okay, thanks, sorry. And so the good news is that, you know, you do know that there was one person who was seeking to build a new building and now has that license. You know, I think it's something that the License Commission needs to think about. You know, you have someone before you now who needs this assurance to embark on the biggest, like pretty much the biggest project the city has ever seen, or you can not do it and wait and think that someone else might come forward. And I'm not sure. So we have there's 3 alcohol, right? And then there's 2 wine and malt. So there would be 1 full license still available. And then still, like, I think it sounded like you said there was going to be none, but there would be 1 full license available and then 2 on-premise wine and malt, right? So it may not give the person the full license, but there's still 2 more available in the Mill District, correct? Like, Lindsay, is that correct? Right?
Yes,
so
we have
There'd be 2 wine and beer licenses.
Yeah, right.
all alcohol.
I'm wondering if part of what we're seeing here as a concern is that we're being asked to hold these licenses for a really long time. Even if we draft a proposal, it's for 3 years. I would propose to the board that we put something together with the clause in it that it gets reviewed on an annual basis. So a year from now, we can look at this and say, okay, well, is this project still going forward, or has it come to a halt like it did in 2008, where everything came to a grinding halt and the building sat there for 10 years with nothing happening? This way, we have a reservation for the license, and 1 license or 2 licenses or whatever we decide. And every year we can take a look at it and say, okay, is this still viable? Is this still worth holding on to? And then we can renew it for another year. I don't think that we have to say right now, yes, we'll give it for 3 years or 5 years. I don't think 5 years is going to happen. In my view, I think that's kind of reaching. 3 years at best, but I think that we should have a clause in there that we review this on an annual basis to make sure that the project is still viable and going forward.
I think that's a good idea, Stan, because I think at that point each year, then Mike can also give us, he can say, yes, I have a contract with such and such company now or business to move forward into this area, into this rented space that's going to want that. I think we'd have a much better comfort level once the space is built out and you have a tenant that signed a contract. If that was the case, waiting a year is not as bad. We've had so many other businesses come in and say, oh yeah, we're gonna, we're building out, and here's, we've given a license, and they never even use the license. And once again, we don't, we have a license that can't be used. So I think that's one of our concerns too. Yeah. Where your project is in each step of the way.
And I don't want to have to wait. If something did occur and the project was shut down, I don't want to have to wait for 5 years to get those licenses back into circulation again. So I think that looking at this, and that's why I'm thinking of a year. Let's take a look at, go ahead and put this together with the language that we'll look at it another year from now and review this. And if it looks like everything's going forward and everything's great, we can renew it again. And that way it's kind of taking baby steps until you finally have a tenant in there that's going to be doing something. So you basically have the license reserved, but it's not tied up for 5 years with us. Does that make sense?
I think that's a good idea.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
All right.
Is that something the board wants me to draft up, or is that something?
Well, I think first we should find out, though, if we're going to issue this reserve, that does the license have to be issued no later than 3 years? Because that when they're saying, I want to know that the language when they say that it's granted means the license is granted. That doesn't mean it's reserved. So I just need the legal definition of this.
So we need
So that would be something that Tanner would have to look at.
Okay.
So I think, between now and our next meeting, we can, formulate something that says, that it will be, we will reserve the 2 licenses, but they will be yearly, come before the board again for an extension of it to up to the 3 years.
Okay, I can check with Attorney Tanner on that.
Okay. Is everybody in agreement on that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Stan or Anthony, could you make a motion that we can vote on?
I make a motion that we, I don't know exactly how to say this, that we reserve 2 licenses for Mike Michon's project with annual review.
With the language, though, checked by the attorney.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Jeff.
Who seconded that
Thank you
motion?
all. Thank you for your time.
Dan did.
Okay, thank you. I'm just jotting this motion down, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll just say thanks for having me and letting me jump in and have the conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeff.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right. Thanks. I'm going to make it to my 6 o'clock Conservation Commission meeting.
Woo.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Lindsay, tell me when you're ready for the change of manager.
Okay, I'm ready. Sorry, I had to write all that down.
All right. I would like to open the public hearing for the change of manager application for Old Colony Package Store.
So I did speak with Landon today, but I did not receive the completed paperwork for the change of manager, but it looks like he is here on the line. So Landon, if you want to unmute yourself. Looks like you're unmuted now.
Who is Landon?
Landon Jenkins is the new proposed manager of the Old Colony Package Store.
Okay.
The previous manager we had listed as Edward Gall. And so they had sent over paperwork by mail with no real language attached. It was an incomplete application filled out by Carol that I had forwarded to the board.
Okay.
I then, and it was also handwritten, the ABCC requires it typed. So I went ahead and typed it up for everyone at Old Colony and let them know that Carol Gall had signed off on the change of manager, but I believe it had to be Edward since he was the current manager.
Correct.
Okay. So I did let them know that he would need to sign off on all that. I was away on vacation for the week, but I did inform them this morning that they could connect with the ABCC for any questions on their filing of the application. So still just missing a completed application for that.
Okay. Have they paid their fees?
To the ABCC, yes, not the fee to us, no. I asked them to have all the fees and completed paperwork prior to the meeting today.
Okay. And Landon, can you hear us?
Looks like he's calling in on a different phone now too, so I'm admitting that. Landon, are you with us now? You're on mute.
Okay, and do I start video if they want to see? Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me now?
We can. Hello.
This is my first Zoom meeting.
It's okay. Welcome.
Thank you. All right. So I didn't hear the last question or concern or whatever. What was it?
So I was letting the board know that we had talked and we were still missing the completed application and fees to the local authority here.
Right. But Carol Gall is the owner. Her and Eddie both are the owners. And she put down, like, she's like the treasurer for the corporation. And Eddie, he's not really part of the business anymore. He owns it, but they just had his name as the manager for the longest. And she just wanted to change my name, but she is the owner.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter if he is on record as the manager. They should have changed that.
Yeah, well, they're changing it now. I mean, but I'm just saying, like, he's the manager, but I mean,
He needs to sign it. He was the manager. He's the one that needs to sign it.
so any new manager needs to sign it if they're leaving? Is that what you're saying?
Right, the manager that's leaving it.
They're signing
then
over the
Pat,
license.
Sign over the license.
Right.
A
so
manager does that, even if,
the manager of the license currently is Edward Gall. So he
Correct.
has to sign over that license to whoever he wants to be the manager of that license, because you then absorb the responsibility for the hours of serving, the people being served, and all the ABCC regulations.
Okay. And what form do I have to give him to sign it?
I
To
sent you
sign.
back the filled out form. He's going to sign in all the places you had Carol sign.
So all the places Carol signed.
Correct. Let me look.
Because like in the past, when I worked at other places, I know when a manager left, most of them got fired, and they left. I know they never signed it, but them, that could be new. But okay, so wherever Carol signed it, I got to find Eddie and have him sign.
So the applicant statement form, Carol signed that as the corporate
Yep.
principal, and she signed at the bottom.
Yeah.
Then you have the corporate vote form.
Yep.
So the vote to authorize,
Vote to authorize.
and
Yep.
you are the vote to appoint.
So Eddie needs to sign the vote to authorize,
Correct.
and
then,
that's it.
And then that form, Carol signed under the corporate clerk signature, the corporate officer. In that form, the corporate vote also needs to be notarized, I believe.
Can I just, are you changing the manager or are they changing the ownership of the license? What do they want to do?
Manager. Just the manager, not
Okay,
the ownership of the license.
okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page here.
All right. So I have him sign, just to be clear, the vote to authorize, and then I have to have Carol sign, or have him sign. Where else do I have to have him sign?
You're doing the corporate voting form,
The voting form. Yep.
the amendment change of manager form through the ABCC,
Okay, so those two. Yep.
and then the applicant statement form. It's all the forms that came through the ABCC.
All right, so Eddie has to sign all of those.
And he's appointing you, correct?
Okay. So, and this happens like, so even though once I become manager and let's say I leave, I get fired, I would have to sign it over in order for them to have another manager?
Kelly, can you speak on that?
Eddie's the manager of record right now.
Right, but what about
They
if
would
I'm,
have to change.
I
they would
understand
have
that, but I'm
to
saying,
change the license.
okay, my question is, once I become the new manager of the business, of the license, and let's say they fire me, and I don't want to sign off, what happens then? If I'm
Well,
fired?
without seeing their license right now, how everything is on their license, I can't answer that because I have half filled out forms here. So I can't really speak to that.
Oh, because
as of
I'm just
right
saying,
now-
like, yeah, go ahead.
I
Sorry.
think you're getting the idea of what the manager is different than just like somebody you hire as a manager in your, for just a regular business. This is the manager as stated on the liquor license.
Yes, I understand that. And I used to own a restaurant. And also I worked in the restaurant business for over 20 years, and I worked at Chili's. And every Chili's, they had the bar manager was the manager on the license. But sometimes they got fired or they just left. And I'm saying, like, I don't think that they signed off on it. But I will do all those things.
Okay.
And I will try to have all this ready for you by the next time.
To answer your question, if I can try, if you left, if you just disappeared,
Yep.
then they would need to get a new manager, and that manager would have to apply to be the manager. Where right now, he's signing the management over to you. The new
How's that different? How's that different?
So I just looked on the Secretary of the State's website, And the president of the corporation is Eddie. The treasurer, secretary, and director are all Carol. So I don't know if
Eddie
that,
would have to sign.
huh?
Eddie would have to sign.
Okay.
He would have to sign anyhow if he's the president.
Yes.
So it would be the president and the secretary. If Eddie wasn't the president and secretary, then he would have to sign though. Who does it say? Does it say on the corporate documents who the signatory is for like conveying a property and other things?
It just lists the president, the treasurer, the secretary, and the director. So Carol is everything but the president. So I don't know if that makes a difference in how this would go.
So without seeing these things filled out, like I don't have anybody in here who authorized the vote, the name of the person. None of the documents that I'm looking at are completed. So that I can't determine who should be signing them because I don't have anything on here.
So Carol had filled out the corporate vote, voted to authorize, and voted to appoint Landon. And she said,
I don't have signed documents. I don't have signed and I don't have filled in documents. Like it doesn't have the date of the meeting. It doesn't have the name of the person who voted to authorize. It doesn't have any of those.
What I had sent over was the new one that I typed up for them because it needs to be typed for the ABCC. So what I had sent you guys was the one that they still need to fill out. But what I do have is, you won't be able to really see it. But so Carol had filled out this corporate vote here.
Okay.
Appointing Landon.
Okay. Yeah, see, I don't have this.
Yeah, and then she signed at the bottom on both.
Okay. I would have to look at the corporate documents to see if she has the power to be the only signator on it, or if Eddie has to sign it also for corporate documents. So I have to, I'm going to have to continue this to the next meeting so I can figure it out.
Okay.
Okay. So what do you need for me to do, Kelly? To make,
I just need a copy of what you have there, the signed stuff,
okay,
and it may be just fine, but I have to look at it, and I'm not capable of going onto another computer right now and looking this stuff up.
okay. It did need to be typed as well. So we can use the typed document that I sent back, Landon.
Okay.
We'll have to have the corporate vote page filled out correctly.
Okay.
So, and then you also need to get your fees into Lindsay.
Okay. I can do that.
Now,
All
All right. So what? Again, what do you need from me again?
Right now, Landon, I have to look to see if Carol may have the right to sign. I have to find that out though, and I will let Lindsay know, and Lindsay will let you know.
I'll be in touch with you as soon as she gets in touch with me. Now, Kelly, real quick before we close this matter, will he need to resubmit to the ABCC with their fees if it's different?
And he might be able just to amend it. The fees are already in there.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
And just
So you should
to,
be, Landon, Kelly will review this and get back to me, and then I'll be in touch with you.
Okay, cool. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I, Lindsay, I just have to step away for 1 second.
Okay.
Can I
Hold
leave?
on. Hold on 1 second.
and Lindsay, just to bring that back, the corporate vote, it sounds like it needs to be notarized.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So notarized.
So once we know who needs to fill it out, Landon, you could call the city clerk
Uh-huh.
to make an appointment outside of City Hall. That we have tents set up outside, and you can just zip in to meet her in one of those tents, and she can notarize.
Okay, perfect.
Okay?
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay, bye.
I'm sorry, I had the police at my door.
Gosh.
We can continue now.
Okay.
All right. I will now just, we have no special one-day applications, correct?
No.
Lindsay, do we fall under that you have permission to sign for us? I know, like the Conservation Commission, the agent is allowed to sign. Are you allowed to sign for us for any documents that need to be signed? Do you know if anything got passed by the ABCC?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, if you could look into that, because we'll have to figure out how we can sign documents.
So I would send it to you guys via DocuSign, which
Oh,
the
that's right.
ABCC
That's
did
okay then.
discuss at our last meeting the other week. So I could send it to you guys that way. I did have everything filled out for this, and then I would just upload it to the DocuSign and have you guys sign
Okay.
that and then print for their file.
All right, I will let you know tomorrow about the old Colonial Package Store.
Okay, I'll have to email scan it. If my printer, I just got a new printer. If it doesn't scan, I'll have to go in the office first thing in the morning and scan it to you.
Okay, all right. So for new old business, Chris Rogers.
Chris, you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes.
All right, great. Sorry about that. So, good afternoon, board. I'm happy to finally meet with you after so long. But Lindsay, did you receive and were you able to distribute the email I gave to you earlier?
I did receive it, Chris, but again, I really can't take things that late. I did not have any time to review that email you had sent.
Okay. Well, it took me a while to write it and apply information to it. So I'll go over the bullet points of the email. Hopefully you can distribute it tomorrow. I think it was submitted at 3:23. So what the email basically says, and I provide the information for it, is that in preparation for tonight's meeting, I would like to present the bullet points to be discussed. Your feedback is very important to me. Number one, financing. Financing has been the toughest part of this equation at this point, not because I'm not qualified, but because of the factors associated with COVID. Since our previous meetings, I have been denied twice since COVID inception on financing, mainly because the banks are scared and feel that there will be a second wave. I have referenced this in the items 3 and 4 in the above attachments, which are emails from both Greenfield Savings Bank and Easthampton Savings Bank. Their main concern, obviously, is the same concern as everyone else, either not being able to open as a billiard hall or operating at 25%. So that is what we're faced with right now, and that is our concern. Number 2, after all this, I have secured the actual lending for the land as opposed to a land and commercial loan. I went ahead, after discussing with Greenfield Savings Bank, that we could first do a loan based on a home equity loan to acquire the land. And then when all this settles down, we can move into a commercial loan, which I do expect to be fully approved, as shown in letter or addendum 6 on my emails. Okay. Number 3, during the time from March through September, we have steadily and cautiously been marching forward to present a plan that makes sense. During this time, my estimated cost has risen from about $450,000 to almost $800,000. Part of which is due to a very upscale and what presents itself as a very inclusive and complementary design to Easthampton's overall community spirit, as highlighted in attachments 12, 13, and 14. We have achieved ready for submission plans as highlighted in items 1, 2, 9, and 15. The SBA, operating bank drainage state, is willing and ready as before to work with us as noted in item 5. General Steel, who is the supplier for the building, while willing to work with us, has not yet provided steel and concrete schematics due to my inability to pay for the required deposit to produce schematics at this point. That, of course, is due to the bank's inability to loan at this time. That is our major hangup right there. And lastly, while I do think I've hit some roadblocks, I do think this project can continue in full force while I am waiting for financing at this point. I do believe there will be solutions to COVID and that we will resume normal productivity and business acumen following a path forward.
Call from Call from
Oh,
Are y'all there?
yes.
We are.
Okay.
I remember there. How'd it go? Oh, good, dear. Good. I'm resting, honey. Yeah. I got some light.
Hang on a second, Chris.
Yep.
Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay. I actually finished with what I had to say. I am open for any questions, and I hope you heard everything I had to say. If not, I can certainly repeat it.
No, I think Lindsay will send us what you submitted, your email, that we can look at it. What, Stan?
On that email, I can only open the first attachment. The MSG attachments don't open.
Okay. I can drop off a verbal schematic or verbal emails to the office tomorrow, if that works, like at the town hall.
You could leave them in the Dropbox for me.
Okay. I will print out everything and have that for you.
Okay.
Okay, and that way we can review them, and Lindsay, if you could put them on for the next meeting, and that way we can see it.
Sure.
Yeah, and I apologize. This is like tough for me too, trying to put this information together in this format, but I did the best I could.
No, that's okay. So, Chris, for right now, we're just going to continue to the next meeting, and we'll have you report back to us then.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions for Chris?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then lastly, Lindsay, the fiscal year 21 licensing fees?
Yes, so licensing renewal season has started for me, and I need to start sending out notices, as these need to be signed no later than November 30th. A lot of towns on my listserv and cities are waiving partial fees for fiscal year 21. So I didn't know, I wanted to let the board know that because, there's a lot of places not able to open until phase 4. When is there going to be a phase 4? Our city is unique. We do have some of the lowest fees in Massachusetts for our licenses currently. And we also only have, I believe, 2 bars that aren't able to open until phase 4, or 1 bar. So, there are things to consider with this, but I just wanted to make the board aware that there are towns in Massachusetts that are canceling fees or reducing fees for FY21 because of the COVID circumstances. But to also keep in mind that, with 16,000 residents and the amount of businesses that would need some type of waiver or anything like that are smaller than other cities, but just putting it out there as well to see if the board wanted to continue with anything before I start sending out renewal notices.
Well, I know I had reached out to you, Lindsay, earlier, and you had reported back to me that there are only 2 bars that are total bars, one of them being 413 and the other one being the Brass Cat, that are not, 413 is not doing any business at all, correct?
Correct.
They are closed.
And I'm sorry, also, so I'm looking, I got my list out. So Gigantic would be another one that's been on hold since March. So it's likely James Stillwagon hasn't been doing business. The 413 hasn't been able to do business. Mike LaValle reached out to me. He's been struggling to secure food trucks because all the beer gardens and breweries are securing those already. And, we did have the struggle with the breweries to get these food trucks, out there and have the Board of Health agree to that. So
413, Brass Cat, Gigantic, any other, what about Luthier's?
Yeah, I guess Luthier's would be one as well.
Well, I know there's a restaurant next door to them. Are they serving food in there?
Luthier's
They don't
doesn't
have
have a restaurant anymore. Ray Ray's went to Amy's.
Oh, but I thought someone else came in there.
Someone did, and I believe they already are gone out of there.
Okay.
Yeah, and now that also Mill 180, I don't know if the park has been able to be open and serving at this time either. I don't believe they've been open at all.
I think they are, but.
You said that you're sending out the information soon. Would it make sense to put some type of a motion forward that we can have those people apply for the waivers?
That's what I was thinking. I think if we could say, if you feel that 75% of your business has been affected by this, you can request a waiver that we will decrease your license by the 75%, your license fee by 75% or 50%. Because a lot of them are doing okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I would just put it that we'd review it on a case-by-case basis.
But they could supply reason, their reasoning behind the request. If a detailed, request would be helpful.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so send out to all our phase 4s.
Yes.
So Brass Cat, not technically phase 4, but has reached out letting us know that there's been some struggle there. Do you want to include the Brass Cat on that?
I would say any business that has a liquor license that can demonstrate that they are financially,
then they'll just provide us that
yeah,
documentation proof. Okay.
Yeah, that they can, request, that we waive the fee or percentage of the fee. I don't know what we want to say there. And that we'll review it on a case-by-case basis and do whatever we can to help the businesses at least.
Okay. And I would
But
put,
just requesting it, they need to give us an explanation why they feel they're entitled to this waiver.
is the board comfortable having a 2-week expiration on this application? Because I would have to like really pump this out, get it back and review it at our October, for you guys to review by the October meeting.
Yes.
Okay, because then I'd have to send out the renewals. I'll start the renewal process with everyone else that doesn't send anything back. But then I'd be on a crunch time for the people that do apply for the waiver.
Well, you know what? Instead of, why don't you have emails for everybody? You could send something out to them now prior to the license packages going out.
Okay.
Just say anticipation of your renewal license. The board will be reviewing at their October meeting requests for waivers. If you would like to request a waiver, please let me know, and please give us a detailed reason why you would like this waiver. And we will look, because if we get it after the October meeting, we can't grant it because
Okay.
the licenses have to be processed, and that's out of our hands.
Yeah.
We can't, push off that.
Okay.
If they can get everything to you. And the other thing is, Lindsay, we can do our October meeting. We don't have to be the first Monday. We can go, we can push our meeting out.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever's going to work for your time frame to get this stuff together. But Columbus Day is a holiday, so the city hall is going to be, we can't have a meeting. But if you want to push it to the 19th, that's fine. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yes.
Okay.
As long as it gives you the time, Lindsay, to do your paperwork for the November meeting then.
Yeah. That should be fine, because then everyone will owe me their completed packages with payments by November 30th. The board votes in December, and we have to have it into the ABCC no later than January 15th, or they will not be recognized.
Yep.
So that works.
Now, do we have to sign all of these by DocSign then?
Yes.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
But I can send them in one DocuSign envelope all together.
Oh, so
And
we
then
sign
you'll
one?
scroll, and then I will put signature spaces for each person to sign on all of them. So you'll just go through and hit all your signature spaces. You won't get a pop-up for any of Stan's or Tony's or anything. I'll sort it out for you guys. So you just go into the DocuSign and click through your signatures.
That works.
What time on the 19th did the board want to meet?
When we're meeting like this, I can meet any time of the day.
Okay, I can too.
I'm pretty open as well.
Do you guys want to do a 4 o'clock meeting, 3 o'clock, afternoon, 5 o'clock?
Yeah, if it's on a Monday, 5 is better for me.
5's better?
Okay.
Stick
So
to
the 19th, 5 o'clock?
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Lindsay, thank you. Thank you for getting us all through at least my first Zoom meeting.
Yes. Okay.
And then if you need any help with figuring out what we're doing for Mishan to get language, for the legal part of it, please let me know.
Okay.
But I think reaching out probably to Carrie would be helpful.
Okay.
All right. Good night, everyone. Could I have a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion to close the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.